Hello and welcome to the Driller Guide. In this video, I'll be covering all the tools, items, and methods you'll need to be the backbone of your team in any given mission. Right now, this is you. You're eager to get down there in that cave, set some bugs on fire, or maybe your teammates, and blow both of the former up with satchel charges. And hopefully by the end of your time with the Driller, you'll be that guy. You know, the guy who doesn't let anyone die down there. You can pull a green beard kicking and screaming out of any pit, regardless of the depths or how many bugs are coming for you. Now, I might be getting a bit ahead of myself. Stop me if you've seen this one before. Okay, maybe that was a bit of an exaggeration, but I digress. Hopefully, by the end of this guide, you'll be looking like this.
Rich veins of morkite and gold further down. Bring it back, boys. Things about to go.
Yeah, that went a little bit better. So, you may have seen some items there that you're not familiar with. So let's get you acquainted with those now. Now before we get started, I think it's important to make it clear that all of these weapons are fully modified and the game is being played on the highest difficulty, Hazard 5. Because I feel that it's important to show you these weapons at their full potential in the endgame content. First we have the Flamethrower. This is the Driller's default weapon and can be modified very heavily for either sticky flame or direct flame damage. It also has a decent range. It is used to great effect dealing with small enemies and enemies that die quickly to burn damage. Coincidentally, the Flamethrower also pairs very well with the default pistol, as in the final tier, the pistol can receive a mod that does bonus damage to burning enemies. And as you saw previously, the Driller's default secondary weapon is a small pistol. This is probably the most basic weapon in the game, but with some good mods, it does become very interesting. As you can see here, I'm combining with Cryo Cannon to finish off enemies once they're frozen. This is done to great effect as they take massive bonus damage and increased weak spot damage while frozen. The Sabata's strength at hitting weak spots is nothing to scoff at, as you can see from this clip. It is the most accurate weapon in the Driller's arsenal, very useful for defusing exploders. Now I'll try to keep a neutral opinion, but I have to say that the Cryo Cannon is my absolute favorite weapon in the arsenal. With its ability to stop any enemy dead in its tracks, doing increased damage and making them susceptible to shatter and instantly die, it's hard to argue with both the combat use and the utility functions of the Cryo Cannon, as almost every enemy in the game can be easily frozen, and those that not easily can be frozen with much ammo expenditure. For example, the Dreadnought can be frozen. You can see its status at the top left of its health bar, and it does take nearly an entire pressure chamber to freeze. However, it is possible. I did feel it was important to highlight how little direct damage the Cryo Cannon actually does when modified with freezing power in mind, so really you have to play around its setup. However, as you see, once the Dreadnought's out of the picture, I'm able to instantly kill almost all of these enemies by freezing them. Now I'd like to talk about the utility functions of the Cryo Cannon. Many enemies in the game that have a negative effect when they are interacted with or killed can be mitigated or cancelled completely by the Cryo Cannon. For example, a Brood Nexus, if destroyed while frozen, will not release any spawn. A Praetorium will not release any gas. A bulk detonator will release a harmless shockwave that is much less damaging than the full detonator explosion. And last, but certainly most, we have the Experimental Plasma Charger. This is by far my favorite weapon on the Driller, if not in the entire game, just for how interesting it is to play around. Many of the mods drastically change this weapon's function entirely, such as the one I'm using here, Thin Containment Field. This causes that whenever you shoot a charged projectile, if you shoot it mid-air, it releases a powerful explosion that does massive damage and destroys nearby terrain. This can be used to great effect in combat, or mining ores that one would not normally be able to reach. And now to dive a little bit deeper into the mining capability. As you can see, it is very quick when done correctly. This can be slightly difficult to learn, but with a little bit of practice, it is easy to master. This can be used at any range with enough skill. This makes many mineral deposits that the driller may be forced to rely on an engineer or scout combo to obtain trivial to get at. As when I refer to the driller as a carry class, this weapon is what comes to mind. The capability to mine anything at any distance without even having to touch it is just an incredible power. With all this in mind, it's important to realize that you can solve many problems that would have difficult solutions otherwise, such as this egg, for example. Rather than drilling through the ceiling to access it, I'm just going to use the EPC. And it's as easy as that.
Contact. We got 4, wait 6.
So that's all I have to say about the driller's weapons, so now let's move on to his utility item. It seems that much of the driller's equipment follows the same rule. Simple, but effective. The Satchel Charger is no exception. It does massive damage to terrain and enemies alike, or possibly your teammates if they get too close.
Explosives, boys! Out of ammo!
I call it simple, but the results speak for themselves. That's all there is to say about the driller's utility. Now, I won't insult your intelligence by assuming you don't know how to use a drill, but rather arm you with this knowledge. With fully upgraded fuel and speed, you can dig 4 40-meter tunnels and another half tunnel. So that's approximately 180 meters of solid rock you can traverse. The driller is about 50-50 with his 3 choices of grenades. He has the ever-versatile Impact Axe, which, if not connected with a target, can be retrieved from a wall. You start with 8, so don't be afraid to throw them. And on the other hand, we have the black sheep of all grenades in the game, the HE grenade. Literally just a grenade. Why is this still the same?
Get to cover! That was my last grenade!
And striking a nice middle ground is the Neurotoxin Grenade, a canister of lethal gas for all residents of Hoxus, aside from the dwarves, that can be set off for a large explosion by any form of fire attack by you or your teammates. The cloud released by the Neurotoxin Grenade is actually quite large. That paired with the fact that Neurotoxin is a debuff rather than a area of effect makes it so that if any enemy so much as touches the area of effect, they will be debuffed for a long amount of time.
Toxic grenade! Keep your distance! Watch the neurotoxin! I'm out!
So now that we've gone over the equipment available to the driller and the role that each piece plays in his gameplay, I'd like to go over what I specifically pick and how I play with my teammates. Alright, gonna roll over to live commentary here. So this is my team build. So essentially I take this whenever I'm playing with other players and I'm intending to channel all of my resources into protecting and keeping them alive, keeping them pushing the objective. So as far as perks, I go the same with pretty much everything I use. I do Vampire, Thorns, Deep Pockets for passives, and then do Field Medic and Shield Link for actives. That way, whenever I hit a teammate with an explosive or just anything in general, if they're getting jumped by bugs, I can boost their shield, keep them alive. And Field Medic for tricky revives. Alright, so going with Cryo Cannon, I go 3-2-2-3-1. You can look at that more in your own game if you're interested. And I simply use Perfectly Tuned Cooler. It's just a little small stat bonuses. 1 extra freezing power, 10% flow rate, so essentially rate of fire. Absolutely not necessary if you don't have it, but it's just a little boost. Alright, switching over to the EPC, I use this for mining distant veins, so my teammates don't have to. So I go 2-1-1-2-2. The important one here is Thin Containment Field. This is what enables you to shoot your charge shot to do a detonation. And for using Thin Containment Field, I just use faster charge rate and more ammo. Energy rerouting over clock. Essentially just helps everything about Thin Containment Field, as you can charge it faster and you get more failed attempts if you're me and you're bad at it. Alright, Pickaxe, I always run faster power attack, nothing to see there. Satchels, I personally use them for mining, so I take ammo, no choice, ammo, and then larger mining. Impact Axis, I prefer the burst damage over anything else. And there's my armor stats. Use the same thing on every class. So looking at a actual damage build, and I'm also rolling this as a solo, looking at it that way, and using the other two guns just so you get an idea of how to use them. I do use unstables for this. So for direct damage, I do 2-2-3-3-2. So targets explode, very good, and this is Face Melter. Essentially, you have less ammo, you're slow, but you do more damage. And moving over to the Sabata, as it's to complement the Flamethrower, is 1-1-2-2-1. Volatile bullets is very good, so once you set something large on fire, you can put a mag into it with the Sabata and do a lot of bonus damage. And I use fully automatic, as I usually use it at such a short range that it's easy enough to land all the shots. Okay, and everything else should be the same. You can definitely switch up satchel charges to do more damage. I would not take Volatile Compound, however, as it enables your satchel charges to be shot. So say you throw it in front of a gunner trying to take out a swarm and he shoots it out of the air, probably going to kill you both. Not a great mod. But if you are playing alone, that extra damage is pretty good. Should touch on that. I would not use HE grenades personally, but either Neurotoxin or Impacts are valid. I would definitely run Neurotoxin with... I would probably run Neurotoxin with direct damage Flamethrower before anything else, as it lacks this sort of sticky flame area covering ability that a sticky flame configuration on Flamethrower would give. But that's about it for my build personally, and let's see if I can drudge up some good team gameplay with Driller. So I did deviate slightly from my original plan to play on Has 5. I ended up on Has 3 with a newer player, but I thought this was a good example of what I'm talking about when it comes to using the EPC to mine distant minerals and basically covering the flank for your team, both on the objective and in combat. So, primarily I wanted to talk about what your team's going to expect from the driller when you join. So, you have the drills. You can dig through non-objective materials faster than any other class by a order of magnitude. So, if you guys need to get through solid rock, they're going to be looking at you. Anytime you need to go through dirt to get to the next cave, they're going to be waiting on you. Even though, realistically, they should be finding something more productive to do if anything is available. But, I digress. Point being, if you see dirt, put a tunnel through it, and then go back to what you were doing. In this case, I was already done with this cave, so I'm going to go through this dirt and just keep going. Making sure my teammate is coming. But, as you'll see here, I use this on the gold, because gold takes a little bit longer to mine. And you want that momentum going, basically. That's a big thing with EPC, is it's a little bit less ammo efficient, obviously, than just using your pickaxe, but the time you save pays for itself, because you get more nitra, you can fight less bugs. It's all more efficient. So here I am, freezing these Praetorians for my teammate to shoot, keeping them frozen. As you can see, he did massive damage to... Shooting the Praetorians in the armored section did massive damage, with very little upgrades, I assume, as this guy is level 10. But, point being, if I have the Cryo Cannon in my hands, my entire team is getting a damage buff, essentially. If they're focusing the same targets as me, which hopefully they are, we're good to go in the money. So as you can see here, I'm dancing along the walls, grabbing stuff. Ideally the scout would be able to do that, but like I said, knowing who you're playing with is important, which is also why quick join is a bad idea, because I knew I was joining a scout playing on Has 3. So from that I can tell probably a newer player, and turns out he was. So I was prepared to be a little bit out of my role, I suppose. Grabbing stuff off the ceiling, not having an engineer, for instance, so I'm having to do EPC mining. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but I was prepared for how this game went. So here I am, gonna go regroup with my teammate. I see the bugs are chasing after him. Acid spitter on the ceiling, one of the larger threats on any difficulty. Cryo Cannon also has excellent range for what it is. So I'm kind of trying to teach him with experience right here, like freezing enemies in front of him and not doing anything about them. So right here he joins in shooting at that. Another great thing with Cryo Cannon is you can fairly comfortably shoot it near your teammates, and even if you do hit them, it won't do too much damage, as it's a flow weapon. Here he puts a nice IFG on the suppressor, and after freezing it, I can axe it for almost all of its health, which was beautiful. So that's a nice combined debuff right there. So, I actually managed to get a semi-decent long shot on that goal. I'm usually more comfortable going horizontal versus perpendicular to the vein. So, shooting the EPC past a surface is much easier to hit, because potentially you could hit it a little late rather than having to hit it when it's close to the wall and it's going to hit into the wall, if that makes any sense. At this point, I've basically given up on the EPC mining, as I also saw a fossil appear. So I'm kind of, dancing along the ceiling, doing my thing. And ended up snagging that fossil. And if all else fails for you when you're trying to learn EPC, you can literally, as soon as you release the charge shot, just tap shoot again. It will hit you a little bit, but it will set off the detonation right in front of your face. And you'll be able to, if nothing else, mine everything right in front of you. So continuing to push forward here. Another Praetorian in this cave. Oh, there you go. Nice team shot. Did most of its health with with the axe, and he finished it off. And here's the big thing I wanted to get to. All flying enemies can be instantly killed when they're frozen. So NATO site breeders especially, instantly dead. They're also incredibly vulnerable to cold. So as you saw there, I just put the cryo cannon on it for a few seconds and it's gone. And that also helps with having longer range on cryo cannon. If it is flying around high in the air, being difficult, you can still get it. As you can see, like I said, I struggle with this quite a bit. So I almost shot my teammate there. Tried to avoid that at all costs.
Explosives, fire.
Realizing that I haven't used satchels at all and using them a little more. Okay, so I touched on EPC mining, touched on cryo cannon use, using satchels, using drills. The only other thing I can really say is a lot of drillers tend to, whenever the pod drops, they will drill directly to the pod. Just look at where the drop pod is, dig to it. And as we established, you can dig, depending on the angle of incline you do, you can get more distance than 180. But I'd say 180 with full upgrades is a comfortable number, that if you see the pod 170 meters away, you're going to be able to get to it. But, sorry, got off topic there, but a lot of people expect the driller to drill straight to the pod. And if the tunnel is crazy, that's not unreasonable. But if the tunnel is basically a straight shot back to the pod, like it is in this specific gameplay, you'll see later on, I wouldn't recommend digging, because digging is slower than walking in a straight line. That's just irrefutable. So I go ahead and boost my teammate's shield there, because I hit him a little bit. It's more of a sign of good faith for me personally than anything. Yeah, so if you can, the more time you spend not digging through a wall while moving towards the pod, the better. So if you can link up a tunnel, if you dig halfway to the pod, get back into another cave, and then continue drilling on the other side, you can easily cut out 30 to 40 meters. May have shot my teammate. And that saves a fair bit of time, as drilling is very slow. Excuse me. It's slower than walking in a straight line. If the tunnel is a corkscrew spaghetti junction nonsense, then drilling's definitely faster. As you can see here, I make a couple solid attempts at this. Or not solid, but I make a couple really trying hard attempts and end up just giving up on it. So I've hit Cryo Cannon, EPC, drilling to the pod, use of satchel charges, team play, and what your teammates are going to expect from you. I'd say if your teammates are getting stuck in holes, they're also going to look to you and then the engineer after you if he's closer, as far as unsticking your fellow dwarves is mainly a driller job. Because if you're stuck, that means there's earth around you. That's why you can't progress. So moving that earth is gonna fix all your problems. So as you can see here, I took a peep at the map, realized that it's basically a straight shot back, so I'm not gonna start tunneling through the wall for no reason. So I think I will leave the commentary here, as I've covered just about everything I wanted to with this specific game. And really, this is one for one how you'll be playing on higher difficulties. Just a little bit faster, a little bit more efficiently, probably with 4 players, and you'll just have a lot more bugs to contend with. But the principles are there. Protect your team, move quickly, know your role, and don't kill your teammates with satchel charges. You can do that once or twice if you want. Alright, that's all I got for commentary. Enjoy the rest of the gameplay. Yeah, have a good one. I'll see you around.
That's it, lads. Rock and stone.
Drop pod departing in T-minus 4 minutes. Galactic thanks you for your good work. Drop pod will leave with or without you.
Leave no dwarf behind.
Retrieving escape pod.
None!